Welcome to Pure Conversation. My name is Zach Benosh, and I'm here tonight with my co-host Joe Miller and our esteemed guest Jason Ramjit. Jason is an entrepreneur specializing in retail packaged food. He's currently vice president of sales at Ava Manufacturing, as well as president of Valued Manufacturing Resources. These companies private label packaged food, primarily those in health food categories like Nutrigrain bars, low-fat foods, and dietary cereals. Jason has a wealth of information, and we are looking forward to picking his brain for insightful information about his expertise and the food manufacturing industry.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jason.
No problem.
So first question is got to be, how did you get into the food industry? What brought you there?
Well, it's a weird story. I graduated Pace University with a computer science degree. It was around the same time that World Trade Center fell, 2001. When I got out of college, computer science jobs had dried up. So I entered the world of beverage by working at Coca-Cola Beverages in Maspeth, Queens.
And how did that turn into, how did you get from that to private labeling?
So at Coca-Cola, I kind of went through the entire Coca-Cola system in terms of learning product development, distribution networks, running a production plant, logistics labor, union drivers versus non-union drivers. I then took that knowledge and I went to a large CPG firm that was at a small level at that point. It was the Hain Celestial Group. I went over to the Hain Celestial Group in their operations department, and it was there that I took control of new brands and old brands at the same time. I started off with an actual Jewish brand. It was called Kinneret Frozen Foods.
Oh yeah.
And Kinneret did a lot of challah bread. They did a lot of fish products and stuff like that. I managed that for Hain Celestial. I also managed sugar-free Estes brand. I then kind of moved my way up and started on the Earth's Best Baby line. And then I was kind of moved around where I was able to work on Earth's Best and then Terra Chips. It was that point that we bought, Hain Celestial had purchased Sensible Portion Snacks from a great individual by the name of Jason Cohen. Jason Cohen was historic in starting brands, and then as they grew to a certain level, he was always purchased by large CPG firms.
That's really, really interesting. So did you imagine yourself coming out of college at all going into this type of industry, or it was completely brand new to you? Did you have like any insight into the industry beforehand, or just whatever job you could really find?
Well, Pace University, as much as I studied computer science as a major, was a business school. So I was really studying more about business than I was at computer science. So it was a 50-50 mix. So coming out, not being able to find a computer science job, I automatically could turn my business knowledge from Pace University into a good format at Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that's like a somewhat similar during the COVID era? People going through university and college right now, they're graduating. A lot of their degrees are not really applicable in lots of industries as they have really shrunk or become like smaller and not hiring, and lots of layoffs. Do you think a lot of recent graduates are facing similar feelings that you felt back then?
I would 100% think so. At this point in time, the labor pool is really struggling. As far as to the point where I believe Google is allowing their employees to work remote from home. Same thing with Microsoft, they're doing that. In terms of manufacturing plants, a lot of the large manufacturing plants that are out there today, like for instance, Tyson Foods, manufactures, chickens. If they need 80 people to run a production line, they're lucky if they get 40 at this time.
Has that been a problem for you with your lines?
Well, at Ava Manufacturing, we did a little bit extra. So at Ava Manufacturing, even though myself and my partner Andrea formed the production plant, each employee that works for the production plant gets 1% equity. So it's not just a job, it's them helping us build a business. So it allows us to maintain our labor force to where they're working 10 to 12 hour shifts a day, sometimes even 14.
Well, very interesting. I actually structured this podcast in the business. We have several people involved. I structured it similarly to try to encourage people and not have to pay them. I gave everybody equity so that we could build it together. But speaking of Ava Manufacturing, can you tell us a little bit about the process of how does someone create a product? How does it go from, a theory to product to packaging?
So that's very interesting. This is information that I learned from Coca-Cola, from the Haynes Electric Group, and most particularly from Jason Cohen. What you do is you have to study trends. So you can get this data via paying for it from Nielsen's data or spins, in which you'll see a category that's growing month over month, year over quarter, year over year. Those are the categories that you want to be involved in. For instance, if you look at a few years back, call it 10 years back, Chobani was the #1 Greek yogurt in the country, right? Everybody was gravitating towards Chobani. Today, you'll see Chobani shift their focus into oat milk or oat yogurts. So these are the trends that are out there. When we started Ava Manufacturing, we realized two of the big things that were out there that people kind of gravitating towards was one, gluten-free, which is why we're a certified gluten-free facility. The other thing that people kind of are straying away from were peanuts. That's why we allow every other nut into our facility except for peanuts.
Interesting. But let's say I were to come to you. I want to make something. So how would you? Meaning, do I send you a recipe? Do you work with me in terms of what you have on staff? How do you come up with make whatever? Being that you're involved in private labeling, how do you invent my dish?
Well, we first start off with a product development portfolio, right? What are your 5 key callouts? For instance, let's just say you wanted to do a granola. Well, I want my granola to be high in protein. I want my granola to be certified gluten-free. I want my granola to have less fat. I want my granola to have less sugar or natural sugars. Based on those categories, then we will go to our product development labs and we will then develop the formula to reduce sugar, use only gluten-free ingredients, use more nuts because nuts contain protein. Granola contains a little bit of carbs, probably good carbs, but they also give off sugar. So it's about the baking process and time to reduce the amount of sugar that you're gonna, get from baking granola a little extra.
How much of the trial run involves also taste testing? Meaning, in theory, you say I want it to have this much protein, I want it to have these ingredients, but do you ever run into the problem where it also has to taste good?
Yes, we do. What we'll do is when we do run a new product for a customer, first of all, we'll do a benchtop sample, which is basically a small lab sample. We will then internally have X amount of individuals, anywhere between 5 and 10 individuals, taste and give us their feedback based on different categories. Texture, flavor, taste, likeness, and they'll give us their feedback. Then based off of that feedback, we'll then tweak the formula one more time, send that to the customer, and then allow them to come back to us with feedback. A lot of the time, most of the products that we've developed for customers that are in-house right now, on the first go around, they're already on board with what we've created with very small tweaks. Maybe it's add 1% more sugar or take 1% less salt out.
And the whole manufacturing process from start to end. And then if you're taking a product, you've got the research, the development side, the every part of it. Like, how long does it take until it can actually hit the shelves and customers can actually try it?
Well, so if you're talking about a new product right from the get-go, what you're going to have to do is first you're going to have to make a benchtop sample. Once you do a benchtop sample, then and you accept it, that formula then converts into manufacturing, where we're then going to say, okay, our manufacturing shift is capable of doing 7,500 pounds in a shift. In an hour, we can do 1,000 pounds. We will then run a trial, right, with an hour worth of time. That'll be 1,000 pounds of product. Once you're done with that 1,000 pounds of product, one thing it enables the production plant or us to do is give you viable costing. We'll understand what our throughput is, what our run rates are, how many employees it took to do this, that, and the third, and we'll be able to give you costing. At the same time, you want to take that product and you want to send it out to somebody like Silica Labs to do shelf life testing. That way, you'll be able to tell what the shelf life of your product is, and then you can physically put that best buy date on your product and put it out in the retail market space, along with presenting to your retail buyers or your retailers, hey, we've done this amount of shelf study. This is the shelf life of the product. Once you put it into your stores, it can be in the back room for 4 to 6 weeks prior to going on shelf. At the point it's on shelf, you have, 9 months to move through that product. A lot of time, product that goes on the shelf will be able to be moved out in 8 weeks.
So I never thought about this, but in terms of shelf life testing, so how does that work? Meaning, do you have to like run a line of food, then leave it on the shelf for like 9 months? And
No.
how do they figure that out?
What they do is they put it under different strains. So they might put it in one bag in an environment where the temperature reaches an excess of 110 to 120 degrees. They might do the other opposite of putting it through a test where it is at 30 degrees to 32 degrees. They'll put it in a stable environment. And then based off of those different environments, they'll be able to tell you if it's going rancid at a certain temperature, if it's giving off bad odor, if it's giving off bad taste. They'll break down everything for you at different temperatures. Once you're able to do that, you're able to combine all that information together to really figure out what your shelf life is.
And how expensive is this whole process for a product? Because you've got to get it tested and everything.
Usually the pricing is not that expensive, anywhere between $3,500 to $5,000, depending on how many different tests you want to use. There's certain items that you need further testing on. For instance, in the vegan field, if you're doing a vegan cheese right now is basically highly refined coconut oil that's used as a main ingredient. So what happens is you're going to have a lot of oily residue that comes out of it, which is going to require more testing. So it all depends on the type of product it is. So for instance, if I was making a bread for a customer, the bake profile post-bake, you're going to have a temperature or moisture content of less than 1%. At that point, you don't need X amount of testing. You're probably going to be in the $3,500 range versus the $5,000 to $7,500 range. It all depends on what your post-bake moisture content is of the product.
Do you find that certain type of products end up more successful than others, maybe because of an ingredient or form of product, like a yogurt versus, I don't know, a cereal? What do you find to be the most successful?
That is a very good question. It changes in times. In the early 1990s, granola was the thing that everybody kind of gravitated towards. A great guy by the name of Willie Peltzer, who started Sunny Crunch Foods in Canada, he was the first person in Canada to come up with the granola concept that you see today. I believe he even coined the term toasted granola, of which I believe he had a battle with Quaker State, because at the same time, Quaker State kind of launched their granola as well. So it kind of goes along with that. Right now, we're in a vegan world where a lot of people are gravitating towards more vegan foods. They're gravitating towards vegan. They're gravitating towards high protein, which in today's world is considered keto friendly. And then there's certain ingredients that are really popping out there, like cauliflower. I've seen brands launch a lot of cauliflower business, like cauliflower chips and stuff like that. That's booming through the roof. We're also in a time where hemp chips are becoming popular. So people are kind of launching hemp products. CBD products are becoming very popular because of health benefits. So we're seeing a lot of CBD added to products. But at the end of the day, the main categories are people are gravitating towards gluten-free. At the end of the day, you're going to see in the next generation, a study was done recently, as early as January, February, that said peanuts should be allowed again, because the earlier you feed your kids peanuts, the less they'll have for a chance of getting an allergy later in life.
Okay, so you talked about like the trends that are going on. So how do you make sure that like Ava and like the other manufacturing companies stay ahead of like these food trends? And because obviously it probably takes you a few months to get food out. So how do you actually make sure you're ahead of those trends? Is there
So
a
I
way
have,
that you can research it?
yeah, so you're gonna have to, if you're a normal person, I'm sorry to say I might not be a little normal. Um, you have to pay for Nielsen's data, right? Nielsen will send you data that shows you what items are selling. And then what you do is research. So you'd say, okay, so these are the top 500 items in grocery stores across America. Break them out into categories. Okay, out of these 500 items, 10% is paper, 20% is dairy, 15% is poultry, X is this. And then based off of that, you then break those categories into other categories. Well, what claims do they have? Well, out of the protein category, 50% have high protein numbers. 10% has this, 10% has that. One of the things you'll see along those fields are a lot of these emerging businesses have the same claim: gluten-free, keto friendly. Those seem to be the pop out in this generation.
So, um, excuse me. So with that in mind, how does what do you consider a successful product? Meaning, is the goal of every or of the people who come to private label, are their goals to become like the next Coca-Cola, or are there other smaller tier goals? I mean, do you want to be distributed? Do most people who come to you, do they want to be distributed everywhere? Do they want to try to dominate a niche market? What are most people's plans? What are your goals when you're manufacturing around?
Anybody that comes to us, they want to get to the biggest level that they can get. The issue is 10 years ago to today in 2020, the game has changed completely. As early as 2018, it was still the same trend where you came up with an item that was a great item. You went to retail stores and you got them into retail stores, and you did different placement based off of where you wanted to go in the retail store business. For instance, if you want to be on a shelf, there's something that's called slotting. It's shelf slotting, where you have to pay that retailer X amount to make sure your product is on the shelf, right? If you're not looking to pay for shelf space, there's other open areas of a retailer that you can be in. For instance, if there's no slotting in the deli section of a retailer. So if you put your item in the deli section of a retailer, the only thing that it's going to cost you is you're going to have to put displays or racks to get it up there, because there is no shelf in the deli section, but there's no slotting to get in there. The only difference is you're going to need to hire a team that's going to be able to go out to these stores in random areas throughout, North America, to really make sure that product placement is placed right, so that as consumers walk through, they'll gravitate it towards it. Today, we've kind of changed a little bit. In 2020, with everything that's happening with COVID-19, a lot of people are gravitating towards e-com sales more. So there's really a different model today of getting a product out there that I've discussed with numerous businesses and business partners throughout the last couple of months. Going direct to consumer. So start your business off by going direct to consumer. One business that I'm working on right now is the Happy Camper. Happy Camper makes a gluten-free bread. Their soul of their business right now is they bake bread, they ship it directly to consumers. Consumers love it, and then go back and continuously buy off of their e-com portal to get more bread. At this point in time, they're doing X amount of sales, so now they can show a retailer that information and get that product on retail shelves.
And do you see the industry going in that direction, that companies are going to be looking to go directly to consumer?
100%. A lot of people, and these are the successful businesses of today, the newer brands, they go direct to consumer first. They're Amazon crazy, they're Shopify crazy, there's Zulily crazy. All these sites are up there. They're going for that model first. One main thing in that field that works is the same model that worked in the old retail world. In the old retail world, let's say you brought in a ShopRite, or you brought in a Stop and Shop, or you brought in a Wegmans, although Wegmans is different. On those all small chains, your pay in terms of getting paid for products shipped to them, you're probably talking anywhere between 45 to 90 days. At some places, up to 120 days before you got paid for products shipped to that store. On the larger level stores like Costco, Sam's Club, you're going to get paid within 15 to 19 days based on product going into those stores because they're going to move at that level. So that's why when you launch a product, you want to have a combination of retail and club to really be successful in business. Today, if you launch on direct to consumer first e-com, your payment is right away. A consumer is going to pay via credit card right away to get their shipment, and you're going to get paid right away. You're going to have X amount of cost involved in terms of production, shipping, this, that, and the third, but you're going to get paid. The only person that doesn't really get paid right away is going to be the co-packing plant or myself, which is Ava Manufacturing.
And so what are the new challenges then that going direct to consumer would face? Because if it sounds all great, but there must be some other challenges.
There is challenges. The one challenge is if you're a large level company that has, you're manufacturing millions and millions of pounds, you didn't need to ship that to the distribution center, pay X amount of cost to break that down from a large pallet quantity to ship out direct to consumer. That's one of the business models that I changed at Ava Manufacturing. Ava Manufacturing is connected to a warehouse and a distribution network. So instead of you paying inbound freight to ship product from a plant to a warehouse, it's all cross-docking. So that's money that goes directly into your back pocket. At that point, your product is already there. So if you needed e-com done through Ava Manufacturing, you can easily send your e-com orders over to us. We would be able to send X amount of employees into the warehouse, break down a skid and ship it out for you. Your costs have reduced drastically. So instead of your distribution and transportation being 8 to 12% of your cost of goods, you're probably now at 5 to 6% of cost of goods.
With the change to e-commerce and more customer centric companies, everything is getting more and more niche. Do you see that that the industry is getting extremely saturated, meaning like you could probably, like every niche product, you could probably now find 100 of. So do you think that it's going to get oversaturated?
It will, but if you pay attention to the Nielsen data of what's actually moving in the storefront, you can be able to capitalize on what's the next best thing. Now, of course, consumers are kind of gravitating away a little bit and they're kind of buying this product, but you can still capture that information. So for instance, you just have to, figure out a way, which I don't know if there is a way right now, of capturing what e-com sales in what category is moving at higher levels throughout different periods.
Do you find that a lot of these brands are now might actually have a issue that they might be so focused on being something niche? For example, like let's just use the Chobani example, that they're doing, what was it? What was the yogurt product?
Oat milk.
Oat yogurt and oat milk. Is it possible that these smaller brands, which become so focused in niche markets, are eventually, 2-3 years ago, 2-3 years are now going to disappear because no one's going to want to be part of that trend? Meaning, what kind of risk are these companies going through when they?
No, you have to do it the right way. Like for instance, let's take a brand that I've worked closely with, Owen, OWIN, only what you need. Owen is at every Whole Foods in the US. A lot of their marketing doesn't come from commercials. A lot of their marketing comes from social media feeds via Instagram, via Facebook, via Snapchat, where you have all these exercise fanatics that want a high protein, vegan protein shake. They're working it into their diets. They're making different shakes with it. They're making maybe even like a meal replacement with it. And that kind of gravitates these customers that are walking through Target, that are walking through Whole Foods, that are walking through all these other retailers, where they'll say, hey, oh, my favorite Instagram star was eating Owen and working out, I'm going to gravitate towards it. So that's kind of the model that you have to go for. You have to get these people, and it might cost you some money where you have to pay for X amount of Instagram stars to really kind of, show your product, but it does pay off in the long run, because at the end of the day, for a 15-second slot in a commercial, it's going to cost you $5 million. For $5 million, you could probably buy 50,000 Instagram stars.
All right, I've got another question, just going a bit off topic a bit. So what metrics would you use or consider for a product to be a success? So besides obviously sales and revenue, how would you consider a product a success?
Well, you're gonna have to pick your category. What category do you want to attack? For instance, when we launched Rickland Orchards in 2014, we wanted to go after, it was a Greek yogurt granola bar, right? That was the trending thing at that timing. We went after a convenience market. It was that grab and go bar to go that gave you protein, that gave you Greek yogurt. It was great for dietary purposes and stuff like that. It was a great tasting, great bar. We didn't last long. In 18 months, B&G Foods bought Rickland Orchards for $57.5 million. In 18 months, we were able to go from $0 to $50 million. So it's about finding that category that consumers are gravitating towards. Jason Cohen just did it again. He launched a cauliflower brand chip that's called From the Ground Up. From the Ground Up is blowing up like there's no tomorrow. It's a bunch of different cauliflower chip type products, tortilla chips, regular chips, crackers, everything. But the main ingredient is cauliflower. So it's going after that vegan marketplace, and it's blowing up in Whole Foods.
So with what you just said, and as well as what you said before in regards to social media and staying trending, so how does someone shift away? Meaning, how does someone stay trendy? Meaning, every couple of years there's going to be a new famous Instagram star. Every few years, the next ingredient is going. Now it might be cauliflower. A couple of years ago, it might have been something, and then a few years before, it's just a different noun or food product that you have becomes trendy. So how do people stay? How do food businesses stay in the stay trendy?
Well, the bigger level brands, they have huge teams of marketing, directors of marketing, and all these individuals do is they kind of go around to food shows, kind of walk around, see what's trending, see what's up, then kind of come back and look at their own branded product and try to create a line extension for that. I've personally done that throughout the world. So for instance, in March, you have Expo West, which is in California. You walk the Expo West show and you'll be able to visit 80,000 different brands that are out there, in which you can see which ones are trending and then bring that information back to your home base and kind of launch something. There's Expo East on the East Coast, right? You'll walk that, you'll see the same amount of brands that are out there and see which ones are popular. There's new product showcases where you can kind of go through them and see what's trending. At those same shows, you'll also find ingredient vendors that are going to have the next great ingredient. Overseas in Europe, there's also food shows, and the trend has always been what's successful in Europe 2 years ago is successful here now.
Why is that?
I have no idea, but that's how it works. Every brand that I've been involved with that I've started has come from a European source. Sensible Portion veggie straws was from Europe. Europe was the first company to do a veggie straw. And basically what it was a pellet. It was a vegetable pellet that was this big, that when you popped into a fryer, it turned into a straw that was this big.
Yeah, I've got to say, we're the trendsetters in Europe.
Yeah, is that why you left to America?
We won't go into that now. Okay, so how do you think has COVID affected your business specifically and the industry as a whole? Like, what have you seen the biggest effects?
Labor. In the manufacturing business, labor and COVID has been the biggest thing. And it's realistically, there's a lot of people that are able to, kind of not work. They're able to kind of just, make it by without, running a production line and stuff like that. So a lot of plants in the US are struggling with labor. But at the same time, people are going to grocery stores and buying at a higher rate than they used to, where you would have a family of 4 go to a grocery store once a week and buy $200 worth of groceries. You have the same family of 4 that goes to a grocery store every 2 weeks and buys $800 worth of product.
Why do you think that is? And then people are just not eating in schools, or what changes?
People are not going out and dining. People are, at home, and they're able to kind of, they want to grab that, meal that they would normally get in a restaurant. You know, if it's a Peter Luger steak, you can't get a Peter Luger steak right now, so you might as well make it on your own.
That's interesting, especially in New York, as food programs in schools become more popular, I think that there would be actually less food coming because you don't have to cook for the kids anymore. And a lot of states it's becoming more and more popular. Multiple meals a day are being covered by the state.
Yes, but that's why manufacturing plants are so busy. Like larger level firms, for instance, uh, there's a food service production facility in Pennsylvania that I deal with. It's called Sweet Streets. And Sweet Streets, they kind of make a lot of bakery items that kind of go into restaurants and diners and places like that, like cakes and pies and muffins and cookies and all that stuff. While their food service business has suffered to the point where they're losing $1 million a week, their other side business in supporting schools and stuff like that has risen to the point where it's offset it.
Does your company, Ava, I know they mostly go straight to consumer, most of the products, but then do you supply or create products for the service industry as well?
We don't do food service items, but we do a large amount of direct to retailers, direct to consumer. So that we do have 3 brands that we run in house that are just basically shipped directly to consumers. We have larger brands.
What are the brands?
It's Happy Camper, which is a gluten-free bread. The second one is a Boda Bar, which is a vegan, paleo-friendly bar ready to eat.
What's paleo friendly?
Paleo friendly is it's a trend. It's like it's basically like more protein from meat than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So this company, the Boda Bar company, they go directly to consumer as well. Of course, they're like vegan and paleo friendly, and I don't know what claims they make, but for whatever reason, it moves. And then we have larger brands like Jessica's Granola that goes directly to stores. We have Keto and Company that go directly to stores, as much as they do a little bit of e-com sales as well. Everybody's kind of got their hands in the e-com business because they kind of see that that's where this is all gravitating towards.
Yeah, I can understand that. I've actually been doing more and more e-com sales in the terms of the food. I found that high protein things are doing very well now.
It's keto friendly. Keto friendly is the new end. Vinny from the Jersey Shore is the Keto Guido. There's your Instagram guy.
Very good. What do you consider, your biggest success? What is the biggest brand that you were able to do, and what do you think led to the success? Was it marketing? Was it the type of industry, or was it the taste?
Well, my biggest success has always been with smaller companies that have turned into bigger companies overnight, right? So Rickland Orchard's 18 months, $50 million, sold to B&G Foods for 57.5. That's how we roll. Has 2 brands. It has Thinster Cookies, which is doing phenomenal, and Parm Crisp, which is the #1 keto snack in America today. Those 2 brands are flying off the shelf and doing tremendously well. So my success in just those 3 brands alone have been a lot. But now this is the next level of where not only do I have this production plant that we are private labeling or running product for other consumers. At the end of the day, what we're going to do is we're going to start a brand at Ava Manufacturing that we are going to put out there, and it's going to go to 3 different account levels. It's going to go to e-com, it's going to go to food service, and it's going to go to retail. And we've also toyed around with something. I have a dog now, just like you have a dog now. And,
well, my father has a dog. Well, really, my brother has a dog.
Your family has a dog. My family has a dog. My partner Andre has a dog. So we were thinking. Well, we're actually not thinking anymore. We're actually doing. We're going to start a dog brand, and it's called. We trademarked this. It's called Eat, Sit, and Chill.
That's a good name.
So what we plan to do is we plan to make a dog treat that's kind of infused a little bit with CBD. So a lot of times, sometimes you'll have a hyper dog, and when you just need him to relax a little bit, you give him the treat.
Can you do that for people also? Okay.
Legally, I don't think so.
Okay, I'm kidding. All right, so then I guess I think the most important question I have to ask tonight is my brother recently gave you a recipe for cookies. How
That's
good were they?
They were very good. There's some tweaks
Okay.
that needs to be done. And that's kind of what we're going to be doing,
Mm.
what we are doing at the plant this week. We've been really busy with customers. I mean, product is moving off the shelf, and mainly one of the big categories that we manufacture for right now is granola. This is granola season. As you move into the colder months, people kind of gravitate towards granola November, December, January, February, March. And that's just so they can get that, good protein into their system to get through the cold months. So right now we're running 14 to 16-hour days just making granola for customers. We will have a completed formula for the next generation by the end of this week.
Okay, so nice. I've got just a follow-up question. So we've learned a lot on this podcast from you, Jason, this evening. So really appreciate it. Let's say I had an idea for a business and for a product, and I wanted to approach you. What would be the best way for me to approach you? Or any manufacturer? How would you suggest someone comes to you?
Well, if there's like basics involved, right? So you have a concept that you want to bring to life, right? Do you have X amount of money to put behind it, right? If you do, that's great. The first thing you do is you go out there, you launch an LLC or an incorporation. You then file a trademark for the branded name that you want to call this thing. You then come up with a formula. That's when you approach me with the formula. I do a benchtop, you taste it, you like it. We do a production trial. Once we do a production trial, I'm able to give you costing based on ingredients, packaging, time, labor, everything. Then you're able to then say, okay, I know my cost is X. Retail needs to be at Y. What's my difference in profit? And then what you kind of have to do is you kind of have to fit the niche that you need to be in, right? So let's just say we have a product. Let's just say, your product is potato chips, right? Your retail on a bag of potato chips, 16 ounces? You're probably going to want to retail at like $2.99. So you probably need me to be at pricing of 80 to 90 cents a bag all in, so that you can get to these retailers. You can sell to the retailers like $1.69 so they can retail at $2.99. So there's a whole business model that you need to make. Now, if you need to raise money, you need to kind of put all that together, saying, okay, we're going to sell X amount of bags at $1.69 to these retailers. These are the retailers that I have. This is the forecast for X amount of months. You're going to come up with a yearly number, and then that point you can then say, hey, I need to raise X amount of money to get to what I need to start this thing to get it rolling, of which I'm willing to give you X amount of equity to whoever your investors are, whether it's private equity or it's just a private investor like friends and family.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever buy into products if they come to you and they're looking for an investment? Would you ever personally do that if you really thought quite something of the product?
I've been called upon in the last couple of weeks to do particularly that. The first one is I've got a bunch of clients that want to launch a gluten-free beer because they believe that people that have an issue with gluten would gravitate towards his beer. One, they're looking for some knowledge from me, but two, they're also looking for me to put some equity in to help them get this launch. Second is a bakery line of a guy that has a great bakery concept that he wants to launch. One, I would be buying equity into him, but two, he would be manufacturing at my plant. So if I bought the equity into him, I could make that profit back by him manufacturing at the plant. So there's different options you can look at.
Do you have any advice to any people who are looking to go into the food industry?
Yeah. The number one thing I do day in and day out is every now and then I walk that store aisle and I just kind of look and see what the movement is. And you can look and see on a shelf what the movement is. For instance, if you walk the cereal aisle, you can see which cereal is being purchased the most because there's going to be empty shelf space there. That means they stock the shelves X amount of days out of the week. And you really got to know what days they stock shelves at. For instance, most of the time it's like Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sometimes it might be Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Figure out what days they stock the shelf. Walk the store on a heavy shopping day. Usually a heavy shopping day is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe even like a weird day during the week like Tuesday. Walk the store and then see where the movement is. And then based off of that, you'll know what category you need to be in. Once you know what category you need to be in, then you can go look at Nielsen data and then see what items are successful in those categories. Break that down into what trends in those categories are successful. And that's the key to finding out what you want to be in next.
Got it. And if somebody is interested in pursuing into private labeling, how could they reach out to Ava Manufacturers or one of your manufacturing plants?
They could reach out to me directly at Jason at Ava Manufacturing, and based off of me having a simple phone call on what the concept is, what the product that they're looking for. One, I'll tell them right out of the gate, yeah, you know what, we can do this at Ava. Two, if we can't do it at Ava, I have 100 plants in the US, North America in particular, that I could point them to. Canada and the US. The only place that I don't have plants is in Mexico, but I do have some plants overseas in like Greece and in the UK as well, Germany as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the time, and we learned a lot. And we hope to, at the very least, get a follow up on when my brother's brand gets big. You could tell about how you were there from day one.
I want to see his brand go bigger than ever. I've sent a couple of things that I think that he needs to kind of focus on. But yeah, I'm definitely going to put a lot of attribute into it. And trust me, his pricing in terms of how much money we're going to make in terms of margin is going to be very minimal. We're basically going to run this product just to pay our employees and not take any profit for the company, just so he can get it launched.
Thanks very much. That's a very good margin for him. I hope he, it's always good to hear from your manufacturers.
It's not going to be a good margin for him. It's going to be a learning curve where he's going to have to spend that money into getting other things like Instagram models to really kind of, show off his cookie.
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Looking forward. Thank you so much. We hope to have you on again. Really appreciate the time.
No problem. I hope to connect with you in a year from now when Ava Manufacturing reaches $50 million in sales and we're running 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week, and Andrea can't sleep anymore.
Please come back. Please let us know when if you have any big margins or brands you want to talk about. We'd love to have you back on. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jason.
I'll stop the recording.